Amen. Hey, y'all go ahead and take a seat. Man, I just want to say every single one of you is here with purpose. You are here not by mistake, not by accident, not just by happenstance, but you are here intentionally and with a purpose, all right? So what I'm going to ask y'all to do, because we're a little bit thin here tonight, just go ahead and stand it on up. I want to see people just in the front 2 rows, all right? Front 2 rows, all right? Sound good? Let's go. Front 2 rows, let's go. There we go. People are here. People are close. All the people getting their water. Whenever you come back, front 2 rows, thank you so much. That would be awesome. Again, y'all are here intentionally. This is not just something where, oh wow, here I am at Driven Youth in this day and time, but you are here intentionally with purpose. And tonight is going to be a good night, all right? Tonight is going to be an awesome night. Talking through this sermon tonight with the leaders were like, whew, you're really going there. This is going to be kind of awkward. And it will be. And it's going to be great, all right? So here we are in our Wednesday Wisdom series, right? Wednesday Wisdom is what we have been calling this, with this subtitle that says this: Equipped with Wisdom to Face Real Life, all right? We are going to equip you with wisdom, with seeing things from God's perspective for real life matters. Not just theological concepts that you leave and you're like, wow, I'm like 20 IQ smarter. No, we're not going for that. We're going for, you are equipped with how to actually live your life the way that God has intended you to live your life. And so one of the things that we have challenged y'all to do, which I hope this has been going great and well for you, is to memorize Proverbs chapter 3, right? Working through verses of memorizing Proverbs chapter 3, and we have got the prizes for the people like we have been saying, so I hope that's going well. Proverbs chapter 3, anybody at least have verse 1 down? At least read verse 1? Let's go. A couple people here. Let's go. Come on. All right. 21, Kendall says. Who's ready to take him on? Come on. That's all. As in, he just has Proverbs 3:21 memorized. Yes, that's all. Only 21. Yeah. No, I'm kidding. I know that guy is putting in the work over there. Proverbs 3. It's a great proverb. We've gone over it. That last song that we sang comes straight out of Proverbs chapter 3, right? Engraved upon my heart, this idea that his word is so personally intimate in us that we live it out, and it's engraved upon our heart. It is how we live. So that will be in 4 weeks, is that recitation day. Cannot wait. 4 weeks, September 27th. All right, so tonight's real life Wednesday wisdom topic is as close to home as you can get. We are going to be talking about friendships. Woo, woo, woo. Friendships. Specifically, with this sermon title, all right? What kind of a friend are you? That is our sermon title for tonight. So if you have your phone, you can go to your notes app, take some notes here because you're going to need them. I'm going to ask you to write some things down in this as well. What kind of a friend are you is our sermon title for tonight. And the verse that's really going to set the trajectory for this sermon is Proverbs 13:20, all right? Proverbs chapter 13, verse 20. So if you have your Bible, you can turn there, underline this sucker, circle it, square it, highlight it, all the things. Proverbs chapter 13, verse 20. It says this: walk with the wise and become wise. All right, so this idea, you're going to walk with these people who see life from God's perspective. You're walking with the wise, and you're going to become more wise because of that. And then it follows it up with associate with fools and get in trouble. Ouch. Walk with the wise and become wise. But when you associate with fools, like we've talked about recently in this series, the fool is the one who says there is no God. The fool is the one who trashes the biblical worldview. The fool is the one who says, I can take life on my own. Whenever you begin hanging out with those people and they become your influence, which the people that you hang out with will become your influence, I don't care what you have to say about it. It is truth, right? The people who you're around will influence you. So if you associate with fools, it says you will get in trouble. So it's essential to look around at the group that you are friends with, to look at the people who you do life with and see what is happening in that group, right? Cool. Here, we've got a good old homeschool bunch for the most part. We've also got some not homeschoolers, which is great. But what's easy for us in youth group to say, hey, we all just go to church together. We're all pals. We all believe in Jesus. We all do the things. We know our Bibles. We're memorizing Proverbs chapter 3. We've got it all figured out. Cool. You've got a group of friends. However, what are the interactions like within that group? Yes, you can all have common beliefs, but what do the interactions actually look like? How do y'all talk to one another? How do you encourage one another or put others down? What does that look like, right? So walk with the wise and become wise, associate with the fools, and get in trouble. And whenever it says get in trouble, it doesn't exactly mean like you're going to get arrested, right? It doesn't mean like, oh, the police are getting called every time. But getting yourself into trouble, you may not see the trouble that you're getting in until later down the road. It's about the decisions that you're making right now affect what the rest and the future of your life really look like, right? We're like in a very trajectory setting time in your life in these teenage years. And so we need to be aware of who we associate ourselves with. So the next thing that we're going to be talking about is what is the character of a friend? What are the character traits of a friend, right? We're going to be looking at what it looks like to be a good friend and what it looks like to be a bad friend. And it's going to get awkward. I'm just going to go ahead and say it because guess what? It got awkward for me as I looked at this and I was like, whew, wow. All right. There are some areas in my life that I need to apply wisdom and the truth of God to, right? So we're going to begin with the good friend, all right? So if you have your notes, you can write down the good friend. This is who we're going to be talking about first. And the good friend comes from Proverbs 19, verse 11, all right? Proverbs 19, 11. So as we're talking about what's the character of a friend or these character traits, the good friend is described here in Proverbs 19, 11. It says this, sensible people control their temper. They earn respect by overlooking wrongs. Sensible, what that word means is a person who is mature or a person who is calculated or cautious or observant, aware of their surroundings, aware of what the group needs. They're thought through in what they do, and then things that they hear, they're very thought through, slow to act. They're a sensible person. They're not going to let anger get the best of them. They're not going to like seek vengeance immediately off of someone, but sensible, someone who's calculated, cautious, aware of what is going on in the friend group. It says that person can control their temper, right? A sensible person, that's not just a personality trait, right? It may be easier, I guess you could say, for some personalities to land more in this. But this is a character trait and a habit that I believe we are to develop, right? We are to seek after sensibility in our life, right? So these people often are people to see past hurts, right? If someone says something to them, they're able to control their temper, is what this says. And they earn respect. Very interesting thing. It says they earn respect by overlooking wrongs. Not by disregarding or just diminishing or passing over, but the fact that they are able to say, this happened, but I'm not going to let this get in the way of my friendship with this person, right? I'm very calculated and thought through in how I'm going to go about this. It's going to happen, and there may need to be a conversation that happens there whenever there is a hurt, whenever there is something that happens, but they're able to set it aside and say, all right, this is over and done with. This issue is resolved, and now we can continue to be friends, right? They're able to overlook wrong. This is a good friend. You want this person in your life, don't you? You want someone in your life that even if you hurt them, they are able to forgive you, and then you're able to continue to be friends, right? Does anybody have a friend that's like that, a sensible person? Let's go, a few people. Let's go. All right, cool. I'm glad to know that just about everyone in here who raised their hands know someone that can control their temper. That's huge. And to have that person alongside you, that would be walking with someone who is wise, and you would gain wisdom by that, right? So that's a person to seek after as a friend, and that's a person to try to grow into as a friend to others, right? Being a sensible persons. They're not going to let their feelings overtake them in their actions. And even if they have the feelings to speak out, they're going to say, I need to think through this first, and then I need to speak on this, right? So a sensible person, that's a good friend. And here's another ideal quality of a friend here in another verse. This is Proverbs 19:22, the first part, so 22a. It says, loyalty makes a person attractive, not hot, all right? We're not going for actual looks. Come on, toss it out. Loyalty makes a person attractive, or someone that you want to be around, a person who is loyal. Anybody have a loyal friend in their life? They're with you in the thick, they're with you in the thin. That person is awesome and amazing to have around, right? And they're always going to be checking up on you. And they're always going to say, hey, I want to be there for you, right? Loyalty runs supreme over all the things. Loyalty, a person who is committed, a person who can say, yes, I've got your back regardless of what happens. Loyalty makes a person attractive. So with loyalty, you have someone that is with you in every circumstance. A Tony Evans quote says this: a loyal friend is someone who is there when the good times are not, right? When the good times aren't even there and you're not just on your mountaintops. Maybe you're on your way down. Maybe you're on your way up. Maybe you're at the very bottom. A loyal friend is a person who is there time and time and time again, right? So again, in this, be thinking, man, I know that person and that person's awesome. How can I hang out around them more? How can I be closer with them? And then how can I be that person for someone else? Because whenever you are wise, it is an encouragement and help to others, and it grows this group of wisdom together, right? So now these are ways that we interact with one another. So in that friend group that you have, be loyal, be sensible. Don't be quick to act just on whatever emotions come up, right? But a loyal person makes a person attractive. And then this very interesting second part of the verse says this: it is better to be poor than dishonest. What in the world? Hey, raise your hand if you're a teenager and you got no money, right? Come on, you're poor. Yeah, just about every person should raise their hand in here, because you probably don't have money because you actually don't work. Your parents have money, and that's great, you know, that you are able to, like, I don't know, if your parents let you pay for someone else's meal or something like that, that's cool and all. But this verse right here, it says it's better to be poor and have nothing. You have no monetary value to give to someone, but you're still friends because you're honest. Think of this. Imagine you had a friend who's like, hey, let's be friends. I'll give you $500 a week so that we can be friends. That right there, initially you'd be like, oh my goodness, I need to be friends with this person, right? You start becoming friends with them. Day 2, they start just absolutely talking trash about you to everyone else you know. And you're like, hey, hearing some weird rumors that you're talking that I do these things. You know I don't do that, right? I didn't say that. I don't know what you're talking about. Here's your $500, by the way. I'll see you next week. We can hang out and do whatever, you know? And you're like, this is kind of ridiculous. And then another week passes by, and another week passes by, and things start getting worse because this person is continually dishonest to you. And cool, I have monetary value, but that person's not there for me. That person doesn't love me. That person's not committed to me. That person's not loyal. Why am I even friends with this person, right? So it says it's better to be poor It's better to be poor than dishonest. So for you, if you're like, man, I don't have anything, guess what? You can have honesty. And honesty is one of the best things that you can have in life. Because with honesty, even within yourself and to others, people know who you are. And that's something that I've found in this generation specifically. People kind of don't really care as much of what you do, what your record really is and all that kind of stuff, but they truly care if you are honest or not. Am I right? I mean, wouldn't you say you'd rather have a friend who is just dead honest with you? Sometimes the honesty absolutely hurts and you're like, why in the world are you saying this stuff about me that I don't want to hear? I would rather, kind of live a little bit in ignorance to this. Like, don't tell me about how I'm doing bad things. But that person is going to be there to sharpen you. They're going to be there to help you out. And they're going to speak the truth to you, right? So honesty, another quality in a friend that you want to have and that will grow you in wisdom, right? Honesty, that's huge. Here we go onto this next factor before we get to those verses. So we've talked about the sensible friend, the loyal friend. We've talked about the one who is honest. And all of these are great qualities in a friend, right? These are all qualities that we are to strive for, to grow others. And with all three of those things, guess who else holds those? Jesus, right? The man Jesus holds this sensible, thought through, calculated, very certain about how he acts. He's not acting on a whim. He's not going to explode because he's angry just all of a sudden, but he's going to be very careful, cautious, and tender. We see that through the Gospels, right? We see that in how he related with his disciples. We see that in how he even related to the Pharisees. He was very calculated in saying, hey, what you're doing is wrong. He was honest, obviously, to his core. He was absolutely honest and would always tell the truth, and he was loyal to his core. And so you may say, well, I don't have those attributes. I don't have anyone in my life that has those attributes. No one around me that's close is like that. Guess what? There is a Savior who has those attributes, who wants to be friends, who wants to have a close relationship that you talk daily with, right? He wants to have that with you. And he wants to teach you how to grow in each of those areas, right? So that man, Jesus, we're going to see more of who he is as a friend to us, but we're going to get into what some of the bad friend attributes are, all right? So everyone just buckle up, because immediately what you're going to do is you're going to think, oh, that person at school, oh, that person at wherever, and you're going to be like maybe a little distracted by that person. Think about it for like 4 seconds. I'll introduce it and be like, all right, here's your time. But then think about it and say, now hold on. Have I ever been this way? Hold on. Am I this kind of person? Because I believe through these verses, we're going to see what kind of a friend you are. All right, so we've seen the good attributes. Here we go with the bad friend. Proverbs 19:19, the first part of it says this: hot-tempered people must pay the penalty. All right, hot-tempered. Think of someone who is quick to explode on someone. Think of someone who is quick to say, well, you fill in the blank, all the kind of stuff, You offend them one time and they just explode. Angry, quick to anger, quick to act on it, quick to roast you back, quick to fire back at you, all this kind of stuff. A hot-tempered person must pay the penalty. So we get very interesting warnings in this verse, and then we'll see in the next verse here in a little bit. But the warning here is that anger costs. Anger costs you something, all right? Now that you've thought about that person, let's reel it all the way back into your life. Times in which you have been hot-tempered with your friends, quick to anger, quick to explode. You're on edge around them. Anger costs you, right? You don't just get to be angry with everyone and then be like, why is no one friends with me, right? You don't got to be, oh, I'm going to just absolutely trash this person and then be like, why did they say bad things about me? They ought to be speaking good about me, right? That's this kind of idea. Hot-tempered people must pay the penalty. We've talked about it here at Youth a lot. You reap what you sow, right? There are consequences for your actions. A hot-tempered person must pay the penalty. So acting out in your anger always requires you paying a penalty. That penalty can look like many things, but mainly what we see that as the penalty being a broken relationship, right? The penalty for a hot-tempered person is a broken, severed, distorted, chaotic relationship, friendship, whatever you call it, all right? Whenever I say friendship, especially as we're going on here, you can also think of relationships because all these things do apply in the dating realm as well. But specifically, we're talking about friendship here, right? So hot-tempered people must pay the penalty. And when there's a broken relationship, the cost there, one could be losing that friend, right? If you are hot-tempered and you explode on someone, they may just leave. They may never come back. But the cost that the person has to pay who has the hot temper is to humble themselves, is to go to them and ask for forgiveness, right? It's to apologize for the things that you have said. It costs. You have to pay the penalty. You can't be hot-tempered and act like everyone's best friends with you at the same time. It doesn't work that way. Like, have you ever heard of the saying, have your cake and eat it too? It's like you want to be hot-tempered, but you want everyone to love you at the same time, but you also want to roast everyone. It doesn't work that way, right? You can't have both. If you're hot-tempered, you have to pay the penalty. Continuing on to the second part of 19, and this is where it gets real interesting all of a sudden, all right? So 19b. It says this, continuing on that thought, if you rescue them once, all right? So this is now speaking about not the hot-tempered person, but the other person here. If you rescue them, the hot-tempered person once, you will have to do it again. What does that mean? I'm glad you asked. It's another important warning on drawing boundaries. All right, drawing boundaries, hot topic word these days, boundaries, all this kind of stuff, right? We've got to draw my boundaries. You can't do that. That's crossing my boundaries. I'm not going to go there. That's crossing my boundaries. But it's like no one ever defines what that means. We're going to define that, right? So a hot-tempered person, let's say you're friends with this hot-tempered person. They go all out. They just roast someone. And you are the person that goes over there to that person that was roasted and say, hey, I'm so sorry about that. They didn't actually mean what they said. You try to fix the whole situation. You try to rescue them out of the situation, right? Or let's say specifically it's a hot-tempered person coming at you. This may have happened in your life. I don't know. But if it's a hot-tempered person who comes at you and is just laying into you, you can't just rescue them all the time. It's important to draw boundaries. And again, we're getting a little nuance here in this kind of stuff, but I believe y'all can understand this stuff because y'all are teenagers. Y'all encounter this stuff on the weekly, I would at least assume, that you run into people who are hot-tempered. And it says, if you rescue them once, you will have to do it again. What does rescue mean? This rescue is kind of this idea that you are cleaning up their mess. And as you clean up their mess, guess what they are not doing? Learning how to clean up a mess. They're not learning how to not be hot-tempered. In fact, you are doing the work for them, right? So, here's the deal. I want everyone to understand, you are not a doormat. You may say, duh. You are not someone that should just be walked on all the time. I'm not doing this to try to boost your ego, but I'm doing this because you're a human being that has worth, right? You're a human being that has dignity. You deserve at least some respect, right? As a human being. You should not be just trashed. You don't just deserve that from a person, right? So if you are in a relationship or if you are going to be in a relationship and a person starts being hot-tempered with you, it's good to draw a boundary. It's necessary to draw a boundary because what's going to happen if you don't draw a boundary, you will have to do it again. you're going to always be picking up after them, cleaning up after them, and you will make yourself a slave to that person because they are hot-tempered. What needs to happen there? You have every right as a person who you're just friends with them, right? Just friends with them. You're mutually together. If they are continually being hot-tempered, it is every bit of good and right to say, hey, what's going to need to happen is I'm going to need to step away for a time, and I'm going to need to be apart from you because what you're doing is hurting me and it's not helping you. Me helping you is not helping you, right? So maybe you're not in this right now, but maybe you will be in it. And I hope that this comes to mind for you, right? So it says, if you rescue them once, you will have to do it again. It's important to step away from those situations, again, especially if you're friends and especially if you're dating. You're not married if you're dating. You are dating. That's why you're dating, right? You are not married to them. So if you're in that relationship, and again, I say these things because this is real life stuff. People in high school, people in middle school get in some weird, wacky, toxic relationships. And you get in some areas where people start being hot-tempered, and then another person feels like they need to clean up all the mess. That's not the case, right? If you rescue them once, you will have to do it again. So one more verse on that. This goes for both men and women here. Proverbs 19:24, it says this, make no friendship with an angry man, and with a furious man do not go. Guys, be aware of who you're friends with. Ladies, please be aware of who you're friends with, and even more so, who you date. Make no friendship with an angry man, and with a furious man do not go. They may put on the front that they're awesome, but behind closed doors, or whenever you're just with them, you're like, whoa, this guy's angry. It's every bit of right and good to draw the boundary, right? Good stuff. Here we go. To the most personal. To the most, just say it awkward, where you're going to be like, whoa, you're coming at me a little too close, pal. And the reason I say that is because I read this and I said, you're coming at me a little too close, pal, right? This is one, genuinely, for me, that reading this, I was like, all right, it is time to repent of living this way, and I don't want to be this person anymore. Proverbs 26:18-19, we're talking about the hurtful friend, says this, just as damaging as a madman shooting a deadly weapon, a very chaotic scene here, is someone who lies to a friend and then says, I was only joking. Whew. All right, everybody say, all right, I got about 75 friends' names in my head right now that have done this, or you're saying, I can think of about 75 times that I've done this past week. This right here, real life stuff. You can't say, youth is just so unrelatable. We just don't talk about anything that I actually live in life, right? Here we go. Again, I will speak for myself saying, I was this person. Specifically in high school, I was definitely this person. And even up until the days in which I live now. I'm just 23, not that far removed from high school, 5 years. Just as damaging as a madman shooting a deadly weapon. That's a gruesome scene. That's big time. That's not like just as dangerous as a feather landing on a little pillow. It's like not that. No. As damaging as a madman, a crazy person shooting a deadly weapon is someone who lies to a friend and then says, I was only joking. Wow, that's weighty, that's big, that's personal, that's like how I live my life, right? I saw this thing talking about this verse, and it says we should be asking this question, how can I protect or enhance the dignity and personal value of another person? That's what we should be asking about everyone. How can I enhance the way someone views themselves? How can I esteem another person as a good person? how can I build up another person that's a friend to me? How can I build up someone's dignity, personal self-worth? Why don't we ask that question instead of this question that I find myself asking? How can I get a laugh so people will like me, even at the expense of embarrassing that person? Ouch. Everyone just go ahead. Keep your eyes to yourself. No elbows flying anywhere. We're just here, specifically in our mind. How can we begin asking that question more, right? That says, how can I build up another person instead of seeking to elevate myself by putting someone else down? Because that right there is hurtful. That right there is even scarring. That right there wounds people. And people wear that stuff. And that affects trajectories of life sometimes. I don't know if you were ever in a sport as a young kid and someone said, "You're terrible at this." And you said, "Well, I ain't ever picking that up again." Right? Yes? That stuff is real. Because you say, "You're terrible at this." And someone says, "Hey, that was rude." "I was just joking." I mean, that scene is just played over and over again at every elementary school, middle school, high school. Get this, homeschool. I'll go there. I was only joking. That's like the ultimate, most ridiculous excuse ever for this kind of a thing, right? Are we getting that? Are we understanding that? Feeling that? Anybody like, yep, that's awkward. Come on. Who's brave enough? Let's go. Come on. A few people. Love it. Seriously, that is real stuff. Because this, again, damaging. This right here, hurtful. This right here, also hard to recover from. It's hard to just bounce back and be like, "Oh yeah, okay, cool. They were only joking. Let's just continue on then," right? It often does not happen that way, right? So, to lighten the mood just a smidge, but also a serious note, I've got a video, and this was uploaded about 5 years ago. It's my very own grandpa telling a story about a time in which this kind of a thing happened to him. So Jacob, go ahead.
The whole month of October, I've been telling stories that have a little bit of a fear factor to them. Stories that are a little scary. And I want to tell a story today that is really not suitable probably for younger children. This is okay for teenagers and it's okay for adults, but it's something that happened to me. It was the most traumatic experience that I ever had, at least up until that time, and maybe even since that time. I don't remember ever having this terrible of an experience of trauma in my life until this particular day. And I was working at the hospital. It was a mental hospital. And in the bottom part of one of the buildings, they had a place where when patients died, they took their bodies down there and put them in it's called the morgue. And they had drawers. They would pull a drawer out. It was a slab, and the dead body would be laying on that slab. They would push it back in. And Mr. Blanton, the man that I worked for there at the hospital, was responsible for keeping repair work done on televisions and other things in the hospital. But he also was responsible for any kind of repair work in the morgue. And so one particular day, we went to work. In fact, it was the last day that I ever worked there. The last day I ever spoke to Mr. Blanton. He told me, he said, "Well, there is a leak in the cooling system down in the morgue, and we need to repair it." Said there's the coolant that keeps it cool down there is leaking out of one of the lines. And I don't know to this day whether he was telling me the truth or not, but he took me down into the morgue and he pulled open this drawer, this slab, this shelf, and there was a dead body on it. And he told me, he said, "Now what we've got to do," he said, you need to get up and lay down on top of this body, and then I'm going to push the drawer too just a little bit, and you feel along the back there's a line, a copper line that runs through there, and you feel, and you'll be able to feel if there's gas blowing out of it, if that's where the leak is. And I looked at that dead body, and I looked at Mr. Bland, and I said, well, no, I'm not going to get on top of that dead body. And he said, well, I'm too big to do it, and you're small, and it just makes sense. Now, I don't know why he didn't suggest, or I didn't suggest, well, why don't we move the body? But we didn't. And he said, well, look, if you don't do it, you'll lose your job. I'll fire you. And I said, well, I don't want to lose my job, but I don't want to lay down on top of this dead body. But he kept on until I finally said, okay. And so I climbed up on top of this dead body, and it was the most frightening experience, just laying on a dead body. It felt so different than anything I'd ever felt, of course. And so I was reaching back to try to feel of that line he was talking about, which I don't even know if it was really there or not. And he started shutting the drawer. And he had told me he was going to push it part way too, but all of a sudden the thought hit me, what if he closes this drawer? And I'm in here in the dark, and before I could even get that thought out, he closed the drawer, completely closed it, and there I was in the dark, and I was laying on top of a corpse, and I was screaming, help, help, let me out, let me out. And I could hear Mr. Blanton outside laughing, just laughing. And I thought, I wonder if he's going to just leave me here. Well, of course, I don't know how long he kept the drawer closed. It probably wasn't but 10 or 15 seconds, but it seemed like about an hour to me. And finally, he opened the door, he opened the drawer, and I jumped off of it. I was crying, of course, by this time. I was just terrified. And I screamed at him, what in the world? What do you mean? And he was just laughing so hard. Well, I quit that day. I told him, I'm through working with you. I won't ever work for you again. And I wouldn't even let him take me home. I lived 2 miles from where the hospital was, and I walked all the way back home because I said, I'm not riding with you. And then on the way home, I thought, should I tell my mother? And I thought, well, no, because if I tell her, she's going to be so angry. And so I didn't tell anybody for a long time. But that experience had such a traumatic effect on me that for years after that, just the thought of a dead body would just terrify me. And even to this very day, I'm 75 years old now. So this happened 60 years ago. And even to this day, when I go to a funeral, I can't reach out and touch the dead body because of that traumatic experience. So I would just say that things that happen to us when we're young can have an effect on us for the rest of our life if they're very, very frightening experiences. So I hope that none of you ever have that kind of an experience. And I will say that I have preached 1,000 funerals since that time. And I do have a great sense of respect and grief for people who've lost a loved one. But every time that I'm in the presence of a dead body, that experience comes back into my mind.